Luca, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you, Brian, for inviting me here.
My pleasure. So, my mom, so the reason why we're having this interview today is because my mom's been speaking English the same way for the past 20 years, right?
hmm
And personally, I think that the way that she speaks is really cute and is really perfect. But, but she doesn't think so. And she always felt like she's shameful of her accent and the way that she speaks after living in the state for 20 years. But she's taking action to do something about it now in the Plus One Challenge. So her goal is to reduce accent to become more fluent in speaking English. So I thought you're the best person to ask. So that's why we're having this interview.
Okay.
So I have a few questions that I prepared. So the first question I have for you is, so is there any questions? Is this clear?
Yeah, that's clear.
Awesome. So for my mom, what would be the most important things, like 1 to 3 things for her to focus on to get the maximum result in 3 months?
Well, first of all, she has to try to work on it every single day.
Okay.
And if she wants to get very good results, she has to work not only consistently, but she has to work a lot. Maybe put in a couple of hours or even 3 hours
Okay.
because it's going to be an intensive work.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the very first thing that she has to do is to focus on intonation. I'm a big proponent of intonation because when we speak a language, we have to consider that we have a phonetic system of our own mother tongue, and
Yes.
every phonetic system has two layers. One is intonation, and the other one is pronunciation. Now, people, when you hear the word pronunciation, people tend to think that pronunciation covers all aspects, all phonetic aspects of a system. But
Yes.
in reality, I think that the very first step that you have to do is actually focus on intonation, how the structure, how the language flows. That is very important because if you are able to sing, and that's the verb I use, a sentence well, to utter a sentence well, then a lot of things fall into place automatically. This
Can
is one of
can you give me an
the
example of what a intonation is, just to get it very clear?
well, I don't want it to be too technical, but in general, intonation, as I said, it talking about intonation, there are it's called suprasegmental features. The segments are the words, and supra, coming from Latin, it means above. So it's everything that has to do with pitch, intonation. Let's suppose that you want to say, for example, your mother is trying to utter a sentence like, I want to go to the park, and I want to go running. When you say something like that, you have to remember that even if you say, I want to go to the park and I want to go running, and these are 13 words,
Mm-hmm.
in reality, you're just uttering two sounds. I want to go to the park, and then I want to go running.
Yes.
And between these, I call them macro chunks, or just between these two sounds,
Yeah.
your voice rises or falls depending on what you want to say. For example, I want to go to the park. You're like rising your pitch because you're about to say something else. When there is a sentence with there is one sentence and then there's another one with an and in between,
Yeah.
and normally your pitch rises. And as I said
Yeah.
before, I met Brian and I really want to talk to him. No, you see that your pitch rises at Brian, and because you're about to say something else, and your pitch falls at the end of the sentence. These suprasegmental features or these aspects are often neglected. Nobody talks about it, but they're extremely
Yeah.
important because they are part of the way we convey information.
Totally.
If I told you something and I rise my pitch, your brain automatically knows that I'm about to say something else. So this is a way human beings communicate by modulating their voice or their voices, and it's something extremely important. What struck me, for example, is that when I was at this interpreting school, a very famous interpreter told us that very good interpreters might have, when they interpret into a language, into a foreign language, which is an active language, that's what they call it. It is not important, even if their pronunciation is not perfect. What really counts is intonation, because if the pronunciation is good, but the intonation is wrong, they convey the wrong message. Now, you might tell me, okay, so what does she have to do? you know,
Yes.
the thing is that there are a lot of interesting books that talk about phonetics and phonology. But I think they're a little bit too academic. So you have to decipher the information, and it's pretty discouraging, especially when you have to face a 3-month challenge and you want to improve your pronunciation, intonation immediately because people want to see results. So fortunately, there are some books that are very practical and that, they don't beat around the bush. They just go straight to the point and they tell you exactly what you have to do with some drills. Yeah. One of these is called American Pronunciation, American Accent Training by Ann Cook, and I highly recommend it. It's okay. Yeah. So American Accent Training by Ann Cook. It's like one of the very first things she has to get hold of.
Yeah.
And then obviously, understanding another thing is, okay, so first focus on intonation. This is called a top-down approach. First layer is intonation, then you go down pronunciation.
Yeah.
Obviously, pronunciation is how we mechanically produce sounds with consonants, vowels, and how we put them together.
Yeah.
And then the third, so first focus on intonation.
Yeah.
Second, focus on pronunciation. Then I'll tell you how to do that.
Okay.
And third is, and this is also something that is completely neglected, is that she has to do some it's like actor work. So what does it mean? It's not just a matter of linguistic, it's not just a matter of being able to utter sounds, but being able to pronounce the language well is also a matter of psychological work. Because if you're not willing to be part of a group, the reason why a lot of people cannot speak a language well, or they do speak a language well, but they have a thick accent, is that unconsciously they don't want to be part of a group, of another group, because they find it foreign. So she has to, being able to produce sounds is a necessary but not sufficient condition to sound like a native or to have a great pronunciation. What you have to do is you have to let yourself go psychologically. And this is, psychological work that she has to do to herself, and she has to work with herself. And that's important.
Okay, got it. So let me get back to you. Consistency, intonation, pronunciation, and also the psychological work.
Yes, let's put it this way. Consistency, then you have to work linguistically. That's in intonation first and pronunciation.
Yeah.
And then she has to do some psychological work.
Okay.
He has to be psychologically prepared and open to the language. Otherwise, it's not going to happen.
Okay, so give her a plan. How would you going to do this? Because she may study. I think she's been studying every day from what she told me. Okay, but I don't know if she's doing the right thing. You know what I'm saying? So what should she do?
First, what I would tell her is obviously, but she's already motivated. She knows what to do. First, she has to study or try to work on her pronunciation, intonation, etc. every single day.
Yeah.
If she wants to see results, the more you work on it, the better it is. So yeah. I would say if she has the time, maybe put in 2, 3, even 4 hours.
Can you give me an example of how to work on intonation and pronunciation?
Okay, so first of all, as I was saying, it's like 2, 3, 4 hours, then 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon or the evening if she has time. Then she has to know how to work on pronunciation and intonation. How do you do it?
Yes.
Now, according to some research, one of the best ways to improve generally to retain a piece of information or general information is to try to attack it from different angles.
Yes.
Meaning that if you hear it, but at the same time you read it, your brain has, this enhances the capacity of your brain to retain information. But then you also have your hands, So the very first thing for example, that I tell my students is that you have to first listen to a text. Secondly, you have to have a script so you can read and at the same time listen. I guess that your mother having lived 20 years in the United States, she understands English well.
Yes, she can no problem communicating with people.
So she understands everything. But even if she understands everything, it's always good to have a script and an audio if you're working consistently with something, because first, if you see something and you listen to it, you have the capacity, your brain creates a bond between the written language and the spoken language. And remember that even if a lot of people think that English is an easy language, the spelling system is a complete and utter nightmare. Because you don't pronounce word. We have a word like gauge. To gauge, which is a diphthong of au, and you pronounce it gauge. But in other words, au is pronounced in a completely different manner. So you have to take into account the fact that the spelling system is difficult. So what does she has to do? She has to use this. Do you see it?
Yes.
This is a pencil.
Yes.
What she has to do is she has to visualize, first of all, working on intonation, she has to visualize the phonetic patterns. And it's not difficult at all. So what do I mean by phonetic patterns? A language is mostly patterns. I'm not just talking about grammar, I'm also talking about pronunciation.
Yep.
So there are certain things that native speakers say. It's very important to understand why people say the things they say. If you just try to imitate without really understanding why certain things are pronounced the way they are, they might go to your short-term memory, but then when you try to utter something a little bit later, it might not work anymore. So what you have to do is use a pencil and visualize the patterns. The very first thing is, for example, to visualize the pitch going up and going down. Okay. So, and for example, let me give you an example. I'm going to apply it to you, Brian. Okay? So let's suppose that we're going to work on. Let's suppose that you're working with me, and you want to. I'm going to give you a sentence. I'm going to utter it, and you're going to tell me if the pitch goes up or the pitch goes down. Okay?
Yeah.
So for example, I'm going to write it here. I have to write it so that you can see it.
Yeah.
It's always script and audio.
Okay. So to get started, you need the audio, and you also have the text, the script, and a pencil.
Absolutely. Pencil, your eyes, your brain, etc. So I give you this sentence, for example, and I'm going to utter it in a certain way.
Okay.
I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city. I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city. So first of all, you have to understand how many sounds are here. Remember that the number of written words is always less than the sounds that I produce, and this is quite important. This is also the reason why people might understand a written text, but they don't understand the connected speech or the spoken language, because words they aggregate. So I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city. How many sounds?
Two.
Just two. So there's a pause between I live in Rome and I think it is a wonderful city. So with, for example, let me show you here. If you have a pause, if you have two sounds, you have this that separates the sounds. Do you see it? It's just a slash. I don't know if you can see it.
It's okay. I'll do it. It's okay. I got it. Just a slash.
Full sign. I can write it on Skype for the people who are listening to us.
I'll do it. I'll put it on the video.
So it's just slash. You create a slash and you separate two chunks.
So you put a slash after Rome.
Exactly. So that slash is telling you that these are two different chunks or two different sounds, and every sound is made up of a few words. Then you have to see the pitches. This is called speech melody. How the melody sounds. Yeah. So I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city. If I say I live in Rome, do you think I'm like going up with the pitch or going down? I live in Rome.
Live in Rome. It's I when you were saying it, I was already thinking, okay, is it up and down? I'm not sure actually. It sounds like when I first heard it, I thought it's down, but now I hear it more as like up. So
one of the very good things. Another thing that I would like to tell you, just came to my mind, is to tell your mother to download a software program which is called Audacity. Audacity is it's an excellent software program that allows you to slow down things. When I say it too fast and people talk at natural speed, you might not be able to focus on the details. But when they slow it down, it's much easier. For example, I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city.
Okay, that's very clear that Rome is up and the city is down.
Exactly. So I live in Rome, and I think it is a wonderful city. The reason why you didn't grasp it at the beginning is just that I'm talking very fast. So this thing, like in an interval of time, is much. It's tiny, Yeah. But what you have to train, the first thing that she has to do, your mother, is to train her ears to hear the melody of the language. That makes a huge difference, because once she knows how to go up and how to go down, and it's not difficult, and everybody is able to do that, it's it makes things much easier. We say things the way we say them because there's always a reason to it. When I say I live in Rome, I'm going up with a pitch, I'm rising my pitch because I'm about to say something else. If I had just said, I live in Rome, I go down with a pitch, because going down with a pitch means I have finished delivering this piece of information. So you have, every sentence can be broken down into smaller chunks, and that's already, it's like a step on its own. It's important, because if you break it down, then you can work on smaller and easier chunks.
Totally. I see it.
And then once you break it down, you can work on the pronunciation of these things. Now, we're not going into the details, but I'm just giving you an example that first you have to, it's not very difficult, you just need a pencil. You can use this, and then you can use, hopefully you're going to see it because I cannot write it on Skype. And then for the pitch that goes up and the pitch that goes down, you can simply use two arrows, one going down, one going up. These are very basic patterns. Obviously, it's a little bit more complex. That was a dog. It's a little bit more complex than that. It's not just up and down in general, but this already gives you an idea that it makes a difference. So this is the very first thing. The second thing is working on pronunciation. English is a difficult language as far as pronunciation is concerned, and then you always have to consider that when you approach another language, you have your own phonetic system that interferes. That's the reason why we have an accent, because we tend to the system tends to interfere and tends to interfere with the language you're learning, and that is obviously. And the thing is that what is your mother's tongue?
Cantonese.
Cantonese. Cantonese is a tonal language, so things are quite a bit, they're a little bit different. So English is a time stress language, meaning that it's just ups and downs in words. Some words are pronounced high, some words are pronounced low. So let me tell you this. This is like, we cannot go into the details because it would take us, 4 hours. But another thing that she has to focus on is rhythm and stress. Every word has a stress in English. Every word has stress, meaning that every syllable is pronounced higher in pitch. For example, if you say democracy, what is the high syllable here? Democracy.
Democracy.
Exactly. How do you Rome? What is the high syllable?
R. Rome.
Rome. So you have Rome.
Rome. R.
First.
Rome. Yeah.
State. State.
State.
So you see that every word has a higher syllable.
Yeah.
And the fact that this thing is words in chunks in sentences, they still have this. They still have this higher syllable. So when you say something, for example, this one, let me show you. How do you say this sentence?
I want to talk to Mark.
So if you see here, I is high. I want to talk to Mark. So if you see to Mark, you will see that it's like a wave.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I is high.
Yeah.
Want is low.
Yeah.
Then you have to, which is low.
I want to talk to Mark. Yes. Exactly.
And the reason why you emphasize talk and mark is because I, talk, and mark are the main elements of the sentence. Every single word, every single sentence in English is made of high, low, plus speech melody. Going up with a pitch, going down with a pitch, conveying information.
Yeah.
If she knows these simple things, the things are much easier in the sense that you can visualize. If you train yourself not only to listen, but also to imagine, so you're using not only imagination, you're using your hand, you're using your eyes, and you're using your things get much easier. And this is not complicated at all. And as I said before, American Accent Training is a very good book because it doesn't delve into all the details, phonetic stuff, glides. If you consider it from a scientific point of view, because phonetics is a scientific field, you will get lost. You have to be practical.
Yeah.
And the best thing that she can do is to get hold of this book and start working, because there's a lot of drills. And the good thing of this book is the fact that they start with intonation, and that's good. Then obviously you have pronunciation. So to recap, I showed you that in intonation, super segmental features, you have speech melody going up and down, and then you have the stress. Every word has a stress, and when you say them in a sentence, since every word has a stress, then you have this gives the language its specific rhythm, which is different for every single language. And then you have pronunciation, obviously. In order to work on pronunciation, you have to produce sounds. It's not just a matter of listening to sounds, but then it's a matter of reproducing. Has it ever happened to you that you tried to produce a sound that you couldn't do it?
Yes, all the time.
Exactly, all the time, to me as well, to everybody. But the thing is that it's a kind of a loop process. You have to listen to the word, try to utter it, and by producing it, you understand. Your brain finally understands how to produce it correctly. One of the best things is obviously how to know how to put your tongue, lips, because ours is a very complex system. You have this part, it's divided into three parts. This part, sorry for the gesture, you have this part, which is the mouth. Your mouth is a resonator, so it produces sounds. Then you have this part, which is also important, and you have this part, which are the lungs. Lungs are important to produce sounds, even if nobody thinks about it because you say, oh, it's just the muscles of your mouth. No, it's everything. So if you know, for example, how to produce, say, the R, which is the infamous R in French, or
in German.
or in German for that matter. It's slightly different, but it's similar in its in its production. You have to know how to do that.
How do you do it? Tell me now, please.
So, for example, think about your own phonetic system. How do you produce the R? Think about it. Just do it. Say R.
R.
What happens in your mouth?
A little bit, roll my tongue a little bit back. Just a little bit, not too much. R.
But think about not only about your tongue, think about your mouth.
Yeah.
R. You open your mouth vertically, right?
Open a little bit, yeah. R.
R to produce it. R.
R, yeah.
So an American would know how to produce it, obviously. But the thing is that when you produce the it's a completely different thing. Think about it. This is my mouth, okay? So you see the mouth here, you see the tongue here. In English, you see R, so you open your mouth vertically, R, and you do this thing with your tongue. This is the tip of your tongue. But in French, this is the whole tongue. You have to use this, which is the back of your tongue. So you have to put the back of your tongue up the roof, and you have to use at the beginning. You try. It's a try and error process, and then you have to relax your tongue. Also, the fact that the tongue is, and the tongue doesn't have to be that tense. It's a different way of producing the R is just a symbol.
Yeah.
The fact that you have R, but it's a completely different sound. So you don't have to think so much in terms of letters. You have to think in terms of sounds, and is a completely different sound. So, for example, it takes a bit, but it's worth it.
How do you do it? So how do you do that? How can you?
What I do is I try.
Yes.
I listen.
Try to produce the sound. Try to produce the sound.
I listen to it. And then I try. Yeah. Then I listen to it again. Then I try again. And then if you have some feedback, that would be wonderful. It's a huge help. Because some things, our brain doesn't grasp anything. There are quite a few things that escape our way of seeing the world, etc., etc. So when you're trying to do something and you cannot do it, you might get some help, and somebody might one day give you the perfect hint, and you say, I can do it. The first thing is to try every single day. Try in front of the mirror, because it's a good thing, even if it might sound a little bit strange to talk to yourself. You're just producing sounds.
Very useful.
It's like geez, I cannot do it. And then all of a sudden it clicks. So you have to try to do it every day, but first you have to understand how to produce it. If you have some doubt, go to the internet and try to look for how to produce the French R. They give you an explanation, You can see the patterns, you can see how it's reproduced, and you can try it a few times. And then the final step would be to have feedback. One of the things that a lot of people don't know, for example, and this is a common mistake, is that in French you don't have just one R. You have two different R's. Actually, it's a little bit more complex than that, but you have a soft R and you have a hard R. So sometimes people, Americans especially, they tend to say amour, which is a mistake. Amour is very soft. Amour, amour. Or for example, if you say amour, it's soft. You say Strasbourg, you can tell. Amour, Strasbourg. It's different. So it's because it's a cluster of consonants. So these are things that sometimes you understand yourself and sometimes you don't. But you have trying a lot and getting some feedback I think it's a necessary thing. When people say, for example, that people ask me, have you learned a language by yourself? The thing is that I'm a little bit hesitant to say yes or no. And this goes to, this is for pronunciation as well, because in reality, nobody really learns a language by themselves. They start learning by themselves, but in order to speak like a native or reach native-like pronunciation, native-like grammar, you need feedback.
Yeah.
And this goes for grammar and pronunciation. So everybody, I think all the people who are extremely good, they got corrected a few times. From YouTube, for example, I understood a lot of things that I didn't know were pronounced wrong. Like, for example, let me think of an example. I used to say country, but it's country. I used to say pronunciation, but it's pronunciation. So I had constant feedback from people who told me how to pronounce things. And
that's because you made a video talking, and then people give you feedback. Is that what you mean?
Exactly.
Got it.
So if you don't have a trainer, you don't have to pay a trainer, what your mother could do is, for example, making videos, and she's doing it, I guess, making videos and say, please, can you give me feedback? And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of people willing to help. And people who give you, sometimes they give you precious feedback. Like, you could say this instead of, and it helps, and you try it again. One suggestion is for your mother to not only listen to text, but also to read them out loud by creating a recording and send it to somebody for it to be corrected. So they can send their feedback. They can just send their feedback, and this is extremely useful because the technology, we have to make proper use of this amazing technology that we have.
Awesome.
We have internet. You can talk to anybody in Australia. You can send them a message. You can send you the feedback within 20 minutes. It's a problem.
Awesome. So last question. Okay. So I noticed that I'm having this trouble with German, and I see my mom has this trouble too. She knows English, but she's producing broken English,
choppy sentences.
Choppy sentence. Like my German's choppy sentence. It's not one sentence. How can we connect it so it's you're flowing?
The thing that I was telling you before, the one thing that you can do is first you have to focus on let's consider a long sentence. What you have to do is break it down, then try to say, because if you're trying to say the whole sentence, you get lost, especially not only when you read it, but when you have to produce it, because when you produce it, when you're talking to somebody, you have to factor in, you have to take into account a lot of things. You're just watching the person's face and you get a little bit distracted. Then it's a live conversation. There's also psychological factors involved. Yeah. So what you have to do is get rid of all these problems, focus on a sentence. You're just at your place, you're relaxed. Then you consider a sentence, then you break it down to smaller chunks as I told you to do it, and then you focus on the shorter parts. So first you pronounce something you pronounce the parts that make up the sentence, and then you try to do it 3 times. This is called back chain. You do it once, you do it twice, you do it 3 times. Okay.
You mean the short sentence?
The short, no, the macro chunk within, or the macro chunks within the sentences.
Okay. Yeah.
So
I live in Rome. So, for example.
Yeah, ich wohne in Rom. Let me give you an example. Let's try to do this. Try to say this sentence at the beginning just as one sentence. Okay?
Okay. Ich wohne in Rom und ich glaube, dass es eine wunderbare Stadt
ist. I forgot the word.
Oh.
Okay? So, Okay, now let's consider. Let me utter the sentence, and please tell me where the pauses are. Okay? Ich wohne in Rom und ich glaube, dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist. Ich wohne in Rom und ich glaube, dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist.
Rom and glaube.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna put the so-called slashes.
Yeah.
And then you're gonna focus on the first chunk.
Yeah.
So, ich wohne in Rom.
Yeah.
So say it.
Ich wohne in Rom.
So you have to say it 3 times. Ich wohne in Rom. You go up with the pitch. Ich wohne in Rom. Ich wohne in Rom. Ich wohne in Rom.
Ich wohne in Rom. Ich wohne in Rom. Ich wohne in Rom.
Ich wohne in Rom.
Ich wohne in Rom. Ja.
Und ich glaube.
Und ich glaube. Und ich glaube. Und ich glaube.
Genau. Dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist. Dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist.
Dass es eine wunderbare Stadt.
So when you have a problem, and so going down, if you have a problem with one word, is wunderbare, and you divide it into
small chunks.
Even smaller chunks, which are syllables. Wunderbare.
Wunderbare.
Genau. So this is breaking down the sentence. So once you have worked on, but you have to start from the top to the bottom, not the other way around. Not focusing on wunderbare and then you focus on the rest, because the pronunciation, the way that isolated words work is not the same thing when they are in a sentence. So first focus on the sentence. Ich wohne in Rom. You hear something like ich wohne in Rom und ich glaube, dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist. Oh, she speaks a little bit fast. Let's do that. You put it into Audacity, you slow it down. She's going to say, ich wohne in Rom und ich glaube, dass es eine wunderbare Stadt ist. Oh, now I see, now I see the chunks, and now I see the pitches. You write them down, so you have a script. You write down the slashes and the arrows, and then it helps you Oh, she said, ich wohne in Rom, but she went up with the pitch. Why? Because she's continuing. Und ich glaube, why is she going up? Why is she rising her pitch? Because ich glaube is something that requires ich glaube das. I think that. She's about to say something else. Yeah. And then she goes down because she finished the sentence. Das ist eine wunderbare Stadt ist. And she falls down on Stadt because that's the main element. If you do this training, you see these things automatically. At the beginning, it takes like 1-2 weeks to get accustomed to all this. I'm not explaining the details, but it's extremely efficient. And once, for example, my students know how to work in this, they work and they send me their work. I give them feedback, and they improve very.
I see it. It's all about breaking it down to small chunks so you can manage
break it down and putting it together. Consider it like a Lego, Lego thing.
That's awesome, man. That is so useful. Thank you so much. So the last thing I want to ask you is, so what project are you working on right now? And how can people find you?
Okay, so now the main project is my book. I'm writing a book, and all these things will be in the book. It's going to be an ebook as well as an audiobook, because the part of pronunciation is important, and you have to say things. And it will probably come out in 2014 because I'm very, very busy right now with a few other projects. I also have a masterclass. I don't know if you've seen it, but I did a masterclass, and I intend on making some others about these things in various languages, not just in English and Russian. You can find me at my YouTube channel is Polyglotta 80, which is Polyglotta 80.
Okay.
And I also write on my blog, which is thepolyglotdream.com. This is where I share my ideas in more detail because I have the chance to write.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much for your time, Luca.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll see you around, man.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.